All right, today marks the 45th anniversary of Black Wednesday, which commemorates the day in 1977 when the apartheid regime silenced independent voices by closing a number of publications, including The World and Weekend World. The National Press Club, UNISA, and the family of the late journalist and social activist Percy Qoboza will host the 12th annual Percy Qoboza Memorial Lecture in Pretoria. As we commemorate this day, we put our focus, of course, on media freedom, what it means for the public and journalists, the right to know and receive information, the responsibility that media practitioners have with that information. Let's take this discussion further. Then we're now joined via Zoom by Anton Harber. He's the Executive Director of Campaign for Free Expression. A very warm welcome to you, and thanks very much for joining us here on SABC News.
Good afternoon, and it's a great pleasure to speak about media freedom on this very important day.
Yeah. Let's start by talking about what media freedom is in South Africa today for this generation. I think that, in the past, and if we're going to talk about 1977, it was obviously very easy to identify what was media freedom and what's not media freedom, given the kind of laws that were put in place in that particular time. But what is it now? What is it today?
Well, as you're indicating, this country has a long history of censorship and control of the media. It was an essential part of maintaining the apartheid system. The 94 Constitution brought us a media freedom and free expression protected by the Constitution and the Constitutional Court. And we are very much able to speak out, to express our view. But we do have to defend our media freedom every single day because it is often under attack. In fact, it's under attack around the world. But we've seen recent attempts to curtail the media by private citizens, by the government, and by others. So we have to be vigilant. We have to remember how dangerous it can be to start censoring and suppressing people's views. And how we need to protect what freedom we have.
Yeah. Of course, we've recently seen the case play out in court where a prominent journalist is embroiled in court case involving a prominent politician. Now, looking at that situation, what responsibility does the media have and perhaps the practitioner have with information that they may have or receive? And actually, on the back of that, I want to debate this issue that you raise about, you say that there's media being curtailed, and some might say we're actually questioning the media. And is there anything wrong in asking questions and asking about the rights and responsibilities of journalism and reporters and media practitioners as a whole?
Absolutely not. Like all elements of power, like all those who wield power, and journalists wield political and social and economic power, such institutions must be held to account, and journalists and media are among them. We are there to serve the public, and if we're not serving the public, then we must be called to account. If we're not following a set of rules, ethics, and accepted practices, then we must be held to account. There's no question. I don't think that it should be criminalized or the state should interfere. And that's why we have a self-regulatory system to hold journalists to a set of rules and ethics, and that's very, very important. And we criticize each other, we point out to each other when we get things wrong or when we behave improperly, and I think that is extremely important. It's as important when a journalist is under attack, as with Karen Moore suffering a private prosecution from former President Jacob Zuma, that we rally behind her, we give her support, because it's very clear in this case that she was just doing her job as a journalist. And so we're protecting not just her, but protecting the rights of journalists to do their work, and the right of the public.
But you know, when you're reporting on a case like this, Mr. Harber, it is important for the media to remain independent and impartial. So in this case, you're saying that, you know, we as the media must pick a particular side, while we're also actually still having to have the responsibility on reporting on the case as it is. So when you're saying that we have to stick to a certain narrative or stick to a certain side, I'd like to question what you mean by that.
I'm sorry, where did I say we must stick to a certain side?
You've said that we should, in fact, support this particular journalist. So I'm asking, are you saying that in this way we should not be impartial? Because our job as the media, when report on certain cases, this case in particular, we still need to maintain that independence.
No. We can't be impartial on media freedom. We have to go and defend it like all citizens have to. And we can't be impartial on the defense of our human rights generally. We must speak out for it. If Karen Moore behaved unethically, then we wouldn't defend her. We would, in fact, criticize her. And if it's shown that she behaved improperly, then that must be the case. But when it's an attack on a journalist, seen by the journalist community as an attack on their work, and an attempt to criminalize the work of journalists, then it's important that we stand with her as we would stand with anyone whose human rights is under attack.
Yeah, and looking at how media reports these days, and I'm sure you would have seen, there's been quite a lot of debate on it, particularly on social media, and I do notice you are there too. But looking at how media reports these days, are journalism ethics really being upheld and being adhered to? You know, be it print or whether we're talking radio or television, are media houses effective in the way that they are informing the public? I mean, I seem to pick up in some instances, and I'll speak about social media because that's where I see it, where there's sometimes a sort of distrust, you know, of the media, and I don't think we can actually deny that.
Yes, I think you must be careful of generalizing and suggesting that your description applies to all media and all journalists. There are certainly some media institutions that have gone rogue, that have left the press council and are not following a code of conduct and ethics and not holding themselves accountable to their peers, other journalists and citizens. But there are also many journalists who do very good work, who follow the code, who allow themselves to be held accountable, and who's strict about their conduct and ethics. And they play an incredibly important role in our society. And where journalists are behaving appropriately, we must support and defend them.
All right, Anton Harber, Executive Director of Campaign for Free Expression, talking on the back of Black Wednesday, putting the spotlight, of course, on media freedom and its responsibility. Many thanks to you.